Hello everyone, this side Dr. Abhijit, and today we are going to discuss about the first week of development, that is the fertilization and implantation. So let us understand this. So you already know, let us suppose that if it is a 28-day menstrual cycle, right? If it is a 28-day menstrual cycle, we have the 28th day, right? The first day of the menstrual cycle and the 14th day of the menstrual cycle, right? 14th day of the menstrual cycle. Now 14th day is the day when the ovulation will take place. Ovulation means the primary oocyte will convert into secondary oocyte, and it is the same day when the fertilization will take place. It is the same day the fertilization will take place. We call it as day 1. We call it as day 1, or it is also called as the day of ovulation. It is also called as the day of ovulation, right? So fertilization occurs 14 days before the last menstrual period, right? So fertilization occurs 14 days before the last menstrual period. The last menstrual period. I have already told you the luteal phase. Now from 14th day to the 28th day, it is the luteal phase. This luteal phase, it is fixed to 14 days. It is fixed to 14 days, right? It is fixed to 14 days. Now over here, let us now understand if it is fertilization like day 1, okay? So you already know the fertilization, it takes place in the ampulla, okay? It takes place in the ampulla of the fallopian tube. It takes place in the ampulla of the fallopian tube. Right. So now in the first week we will talk about the fertilization and implantation. Let us draw one diagram and understand this. Now let us suppose this is the fallopian tube. This is the fallopian tube, right? Try to draw it big so that it's clear to you when you revise, right? And I'm drawing only one side, but you all know that it is like fallopian tube. There are two in number, one on the right and one on the left side, right? So you already know that we have the ova or the female pronucleus, right? Let us suppose that this is the ova over here, right? This is the ova, and to this ova basically we have this sperm, okay? So when sperm and ova meets, it means the fertilization takes place, right? And the zygote will be formed. So let us label it. This is the ova and this is the sperm, right? When when the sperm and the ovum will meet, the fertilization will take place and zygote will be formed, right? Zygote will be formed. So remember, we have the formation of zygote over here, right? This is the zygote. Now this zygote, it is covered by a layer of zona pellucida, a glycoprotein rich layer, that is called as the zona pellucida. Now this is called as the zona pellucida. Now this zona pellucida, it is a glycoprotein structure or a glycoprotein layer, right? So this is the zona pellucida, or which is a glycoprotein layer, right, which is covering the zygote, right. So remember that this zygote, okay. Now let us just first talk about this zona pellucida. You already know that zona pellucida, it is a glycoprotein layer, right. It prevents the polyspermy. I have already discussed it earlier. It prevents the polyspermy, okay. It allows only one sperm to attach to the ovum, thus it prevents the polyspermy, and it also prevents the ectopic pregnancy. It also prevents ectopic pregnancy. Now, you already know what is ectopic means. Ectopic means something which is unusual. Pregnancy usually occurs in the uterus, right? Now, if the pregnancy will occur in the fallopian tube, if the zygote will not move into the uterus, then pregnancy will automatically occur in the fallopian tube. So that is something which is called as ectopic pregnancy. The zygote, the morula, everything will be blastocyst, everything will be formed here in the fallopian tube. So it is unusual, right? It is called ectopic pregnancy. Ectopic pregnancy can occur at various sites. I will be discussing about ectopic pregnancy in detail a couple of minutes later, but as of now, just remember the zona pellucida, it also helps to prevent the ectopic pregnancy. Whereas one more thing that I want to mention over here, the ion which is responsible for the motility of sperm, it is calcium ion, right? Calcium ion, it is responsible for motility of sperm. That is responsible for motility of sperms, right. So till now I hope the picture is clear. The ovum and the sperm meet and the zygote, it is formed, right. Now zygote, what will happen inside the zygote? The cleavage will start, right. Inside the zygote the cleavage will take place, and it will result in the formation of morula, right. It will result in the formation of morula, right. They will inside there will be many cells which will be formed, right. This is called as the morula. Yes, I will use the purple color, right. So you already know this is the morula. Now this morula, it is 8 to 16 celled stage, okay. It is 8 to 16 celled staged. Why it is called as morula? Because it is mulberry shaped, शहतूत की तरह लगता है बिल्कुल. So it is called as mulberry shaped, right. It is called as mulberry shaped, okay. So yes, it is the morula, 8 to 16 celled stage, right. The zygote will start dividing, okay, and from 2 to 4 to 8 to 16. In this way the zygote divides, and the cell stage between from 8 to 16, it is called as the morula, right. Now this morula will enter into the uterine cavity, right. It will enter the uterine cavity on day 4. It will enter the uterine cavity on day 4. Now, when I say day 4 beta, if fertilization is taking place on day 1, so day 4 it will be, okay, day 1 it is the 14th day, so day 4 will be, it will be day 18th, right. So yes, on day 18th of the menstrual cycle, right, or on day 4, what will happen? This, yeah, the morula will enter into the uterine cavity, and this morula now will be called as the advanced or late morula. Advanced or late morula, right. Advanced or late morula, it is 32 celled stage. It is called as the 32 celled stage. Now you already know outside we have this zona pellucida, right. Outside we have this zona pellucida, which I've so I just forgot to draw it, we have this zona pellucida outside, right? So remember, this green color that I am using, it is for zona pellucida. So outside we have this zona pellucida. Let me just write it correctly. Yeah. Now, what will happen? These 32 cells, okay, the 32 cell stage, some cells will now occupy at the periphery, okay. Some cells will be occupied at the periphery, right. Some cells will be occupied at the periphery, and this is called as the outer cell mass. This is the outer cell mass, right. This will be the outer cell mass. I can also write it as OCM. And some cells will be inside, right. Some cells will be inside, right. And this is called as the inner cell mass. Inner cell mass, ICM. Right. Now what will happen? What will happen? Zonal hatching will take place now. Zonal hatching will take place now, right? So remember, what will take place now? Zonal hatching. Zona pellucida will break down. It is called as the zonal hatching. And remember, yes, zonal hatching basically occurs on the day 5th, right? Zonal hatching will occur on the day 5th. What will happen? This zona pellucida will break down, and that I will show you the descending, the fragments of the zona pellucida. It will be broken like this, right? It is dissolving, disintegrating. Now, what will happen over here right now? The uterus, it is inside the uterus, everything it is going inside the uterus now. What will happen? The uterine fluid will go into it. So at the periphery we already have this, yes, outer cell mass, right? Outer cell mass. This is the outer cell mass. Outer cell mass, right? The OCM. And yes, as soon as the zona pellucida will break, what will happen? The uterine fluid will go inside. The uterine fluid goes inside, which will push this inner cell mass to one side, okay. It will push the inner cell mass, okay, to one corner. So it will push inner cell mass to one corner, right. So the inner cell mass, I am drawing it with red color, so please maintain the color code from the starting only, right, from here. Yes, this will be pushed to one side and a cavity will be created. A cavity will be created that is called as the blastocyst, okay. A cavity will be created and this is called as the blastocyst. Blastocyst. So this whole structure, it will be now called as the blastocyst. Okay, this whole structure will be now called as the blastocyst. Now, blastocyst, the name itself suggests, the name itself says it is a seal or a cavity. Blastocyst. So blastocyst has an outer cell mass inner cell mass and the blastocele, that is the cavity which is formed. So blastocyst is the one which is having one with cavity, okay. So one with cavity or seal, right. So yes, that is something you have to remember. Now this is the phase when now it will get implanted. So fertilization ho gaya. So again revising it, what is happening? The sperm and the ovum will fertilize. So calcium is the ion which is responsible for motility of sperm. Also you can remember the gene which is responsible, for motility of sperm, it is Casper gene, right? It is Casper gene, right? Now zygote will be formed. This zygote will undergo cleavage, okay. So again there will be 8 to 16 cell stage, that is called as morula. This morula will enter into the uterine cavity on day 4. Then it will be it will again, like it is dividing, it will be like 32 cell stage, which we call advanced or late morula. Then what will happen? The zona pellucida will, no, before the zona pellucida hatching, what will happen? The cells, no, one will be arranged around the periphery, okay. These the cells, and one which will be inside, they will be called as the inner cell mass. The one which will be arranged outside, it will be the outer cell mass, right. Now the zona pellucida will be undergoing hatching, and after hatching what will happen? The uterine fluid will be pushed inside this, and what it will do? It will push the inner cell mass to one of the corners, and thus creating a seal or a cavity, that is called as the blastocele, right. Now again one more important thing, that nutrition, okay, one more point that I have to mention over here, that nutrition to the early zygote, it is provided by secretory cells of the fallopian tube. Fallopian tube has many cells, I will be coming to that, but remember the early zygote, it is receiving, you already know this is the fallopian tube, right. This is the fallopian tube, right. So yes, the early zygote, it is receiving the nutrition from the secretory cells. Now coming on to this particular diagram, which is like given in the atlas. So you already know that this is the ova, right, the female pronucleus and the sperm. They will fertilize with each other, they will result in the formation of zygote, right. Then zygote will undergo cleavage, it will be formed 4 cell stage, right. You can see this 4 cell stage, right. Then we have the 8 cell to 16 cell stage, that is called as the morula, right. Then we have the 32 cell stage, that is called as the advanced morula, which will enter into the uterine cavity. We have the outer cell mass and the inner cell mass, the zona pellucida hatching will take place, and we have the blastocele. So this whole structure, it is called as the blastocyst, and this blastocyst will invade into the uterine endometrium. So this is the blastocyst, right, one with a seal or cavity, it is the blastocyst, right. Now coming on to the blastocyst, let us learn some important points regarding the blastocyst. So remember, the blastocyst, it is the site for implantation. Right. Day of implantation, it is day 6. Now again form a mind map, right. Day 4 को अंदर enter किया, day 5 zonal hatching will take place, and day 6 is the one is the day when the blastocyst will invade, right. Now if I ask you अगर 14th day को fertilization हो रहा है, so day 6 it will be day 20th, okay, it will be day 20th of the cycle where the blastocyst will be like the implantation will take place, right. The implantation will complete by day 10. It will complete by day 10, right? Day 10. Now, blastocyst goes inside the wall of the uterus, right? Now, remember the type of the implantation, it is called as the interstitial implantation. Interstitial implantation. The blastocyst goes inside the the blastocyst goes inside the wall of the uterus, right? Walls of the uterus, right? Or invades the walls of the uterus. That is called as the interstitial implantation, right? So everything, it will go inside the uterine, what we say, the wall, right? Superficial नहीं, पूरा deep implantation होता है, ठीक है? It goes deep inside the endometrium to implant. So you can just mention also the blastocyst goes deep inside the endometrium to implant, right? To implant. Now remember the site, it is the junction of posterior wall of the fundus, okay, and body of uterus. It is the junction of posterior wall of the fundus and body of uterus, right? So that is about the blastocyst. And remember, in the fallopian tube, I have already told you there are three types of cells. There are three types of cells. The one, it is the secretory cells. Secretory cells, right? They provide pyruvate, that is the nutrition to the early zygote. Nutrition to early zygote. Now, they also have the columnar cells. Columnar cells, and remember these columnar cells are ciliated. They help in the movement of the zygote or into the uterine cavity. Cilia का काम ही क्या होता है? Motility करना. So yes, ciliated columnar cells, and also there is PEG cells whose function is not known till now. It is also present in the fallopian tube. Fallopian tube, right? So yes, we have the secretory cells, the columnar cells, and the PEG cells, right? Now coming on to the phases of implantation. The first phase, it is apposition. Apposition, okay. Then the second phase, it is the adhesion, and the third phase, it is the invasion. It is the invasion, right? Apposition, it is facilitated by certain molecules, right? It is facilitated by pinopods, right? Now pinopods are nothing but they are villi like structures. They are villi like structures, right? And they are present in the endometrium. They are present in the endometrium. So yes, these are actually the morphological markers of, these are actually the morphological markers of endometrial receptivity and implantation. Morphological markers of endometrial receptivity and yes, and implantation. Now apart from that, remember about the adhesion. It is facilitated by, it is facilitated by integrin and selectin. It is facilitated by integrin and selectin, right? And invasion means it is invading, and it is facilitated by metalloproteinase enzyme. Metalloproteinase enzyme, right? So that was about the phases of implantation: apposition, adhesion and invasion. Now there is something called as the Nitabuch layer, right? The Nitabuch layer, which limits the penetration of blastocyst. Okay, it limits the penetration of blastocyst. Right. Now, the implantation, you already know it is eccentric, it is occurring at one side, right? One side of the uterus. So, remember the implantation, it is eccentric, okay? It is eccentric, it occurs on one side, it occurs on one side, okay? So, what happens? There is asymmetrical growth of uterus. There is asymmetrical growth of uterus, and remember it is called as in the early pregnancy, and remember it is called as the Piscasic sign, okay? And remember the true gestational sac, it is always eccentric. The true gestational sac, it is always eccentric. Okay. Now, there is something called as the Hartmann sign. Hartmann sign, right? It is also called as the placental sign. Placental sign, right? So, it means that there is bleeding at the time of implantation. Bleeding at time of implantation. Bleeding at the time of implantation, and we have intradecidual sign also. Intradecidual sign. So, it is the early sign on the ultrasound. Okay, it is the early sign on the ultrasound. Now, it is the sign where the blastocyst implants deep in the endometrium. Blastocyst implants deep in the endometrium. Right. So, this was about the intradecidual sign. Thank you.